Christian Leadership Chaos. This is a painting I did some months ago. It's an oil painting of Sacred Heart of Jesus Christ. Now the question is, my wife asked me this question actually, my wife of 59 years. Why does God allow evil in his church? The answer is, in 2 words, free will. We all have a duty to present the truth. So what we do or don't do in life has eternal consequences. Now in 2008, I made a trip to the Holy Land. This is a photograph I took. 2008. It was the first time they had snow in 50 years. There was about 5 inches of snow in Jerusalem. After I visited the tomb of Christ, my attitude changed because it was like a 26-hour trip. It changed to a positive attitude. Here I am carrying a very light cross. Christianity has survived for 2,000 years of countless calamities. Can any government make that claim? I don't think so. I'm a traditional Catholic. Some say a cradle to grave Catholic. However, I have always searched for truth since I was a child. That man in the background there is a priest who traveled to the Holy Land 40 times. It's amazing. He's about 5 or 6 years older than I. I'm 83 and he's, I guess, 89. He's a very holy man. He made a difference in this trip with 49 others. Because every night about 7:30, he would go over. What did you see today? What does it mean to you? Etc. We're now living at a time of momentous chaos, which perhaps reached a high point in 2020 with these worldwide events I listed here. Our current Pope said he didn't want to be called the Vicar of Jesus Christ, which comes from Holy Scripture, where Jesus grants St. Peter the power of the keys to the church. But Pope Francis doesn't want to be called that, right? So in 2020, April 2nd, in a surprise move, Pope Francis dropped this historic and essential title, Vicar of Christ, in this annual directory. Simply lists him as George Bergoglio, the man who became Pope in 2013. Great leaders are defined by the challenges they encounter. In the 1940s, World War II challenged Pope Pius XII. He faced worldwide chaos. In the 20th century, we had, of course, Nazism and communism tested Pope St. John Paul II. And Pope Benedict experienced similar great challenges, especially within the Vatican. This writer was a youthful spectator to these early tragic and chaotic events. It left an enduring imprint in my mind. Now, Pope Francis' challenges are within the church. So leadership starts at the top. Cardinals wear red robes and hats, symbolizing that they will shed their blood to protect the church and Jesus Christ's gospels and the faithful. Why have cardinals and archbishops, and these leaders within the U.S. and worldwide, not lived up to this sacred pledge? I don't want to paint them all with the same paintbrush. Some remain faithful, however. Why did Pope Francis refuse the title, Vicar of Christ? Now, Protestant leaders and the Jews and other religions have not been innocent of various failures during this crisis as well. But I'm focusing today on Catholic leaders only. The major religions worldwide, Christians are over 2 billion, about 50% of that are Protestants. The Muslims are 1.5 billion, but they're growing very rapidly. And then the Hindus and the Buddhists. Many want a church that supports their sense of morality, their secular lifestyles, like they're going shopping for a church. Now, bad ideologies and philosophies had lethal consequences over many centuries, such as fascism, Nazism, communism, etc. And today we still have many of these same ideologies, especially socialism, communism, radical Islam. I'm a traditional Catholic Christian for 83 years. But as I said, I always search for the truths. I don't take things blindly. As a kid of 7, 8 years old, I always questioned everything. So there are objective and subjective truths. And obviously science is objective, math, etc. Medical health is interesting. It's both an art and a science. The fertilized human egg has been proven to be human, the human genome. And faith and trust, I have a double X there. Faith and trust is not only objective, but is subjective because it's reason based on faith and revelation. And so some confuse objective and subjective truths. Faith also means trust. It's reason, it's the Bible, it's God-inspired, but remember, it's written and interpreted by humans, by man and woman. Pandemic was an excuse to prohibit church services and sacraments since March 2020. All churches and Jewish temples and Islamic places of worship was shut down by a government decree, even though the governor of Florida didn't ask for that. Closing places of worship was determined 3 times by the Supreme Court to be unconstitutional. Nevertheless, most Catholic churches stopped offering sacraments during Lent and Easter, when they are most essential at the beginning of the pandemic. Years ago at Temple University, I was asked to speak, and the professor, I'll call him Tom, Professor Tom asked me from in front of his seminarians, Protestant seminarians, what I thought of Pope Francis. Well, at the time I said, he seemed to be more humanistic, a down-to-earth Pope. But 5 years later, I discovered that he's really very much down to earth. Now, we had lots of other pandemics and problems in the world as shown here. But the greatest problem is abortions worldwide. It's estimated 600 million as of this date. So this was not our first taste of worldwide chaos due to a pandemic and other problems. Why God allows evil corruption in His church? As I said before, we all have free will. We're not just animals, although sometimes one wonders. We were created in God's image, physically, mentally, spiritually. So God loved His humanity, His creation, so much that He sent His only beloved Son, Jesus Christ, who is both divine and human, who willingly came down to save us from all sin. Now, church leaders depend on the information provided by trusted advisors. So these popes, the last 2 which are aged, in fact, Benedict now is 94, retired. These challenged popes depended upon those who often failed them. I don't want to criticize these bishops or my pope, but I must follow the truth wherever it leads me. It saddens me to have to criticize, but if I condone falsehood or participate in the cover-up, then my soul is in jeopardy. So I must follow truth wherever it leads me. So the first issue in 2013, when Pope Francis became Pope, he had a visit from Archbishop Vigano about McCarrick, the infamous McCarrick, the abuser of children for 20 plus years. So here's a picture of Archbishop Vigano telling the Pope about this. The Pope asked him, "What do you know about McCarrick?" Then, a couple of years later, they wrote a report, the Vatican wrote a report, which was a total whitewash, in my view, and many others, to accuse prior popes for failure of duty who cannot defend themselves. I think this is terrible. Now the question is, why did Pope Francis continue to use McCarrick during the 2013 to 18 period, 5 more years? The answer, I believe, is that Secretary of State Cardinal Angelo Sodano was a powerful protector. He's the Secretary of State, powerful protector of McCarrick. Also, McCarrick voted for Pope Francis, as did many of his friends and colleagues. Now here you have the Pope hugging and greeting with a smile McCarrick, the abuser of children, seminarians, and others for more than 20 years. He's in effect saying, thanks for your vote in the conclave. We need to put your talents to work for the church. He hired him for 5 more years to do his dirty work. Not the Pope's dirty work, but McCarrick's dirty work. Here's the former Secretary of State, Sodano, who's told by the Pope, it's time for you to retire. Now, Sodano blocked Cardinal Ratzinger from prosecuting a malicious, terrible priest called Maxwell. In the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, Cardinal Ratzinger was the head of the Doctrine of the Faith. He had no power to do anything. This priest in South America was finally terminated in 2005 after Ratzinger gained supremacy by becoming Pope Benedict XVI. Now here's another scandal, the Vatican banking scandals. It's multiple scandals. This is a picture of the former Vatican head, Cardinal Giovanni Beck. Pope Francis made him a cardinal in 2018, put him in charge of the bank. He had to resign in 2020. And Cardinal Secretary for the State, for the Holy See, he was also implicated in the banking scandal. Besides this cardinal, the Secretary of State, former Secretary of State, was implicated. Here's a picture of the Cardinal Secretary of State, Cardinal Parolin of the Holy See. The charges in London implicates this cardinal. Here's another disgrace. McCarrick, who went to China to negotiate a deal with the communists about who selects the bishops. So China and the Vatican renewed this historic deal on bishop selection. It was secretive, but now it's out. It's been renewed despite concerns of millions of underground Catholic Chinese Here's a picture of Cardinal Zen, who was not consulted. He was head of the church in China. He was appointed a cardinal by former Pope John Paul II. How will millions of underground Catholic children learn about their faith if not permitted to attend Catholic church and mass? That's incredible. Here's another scandal. Pope Francis says, quote, Islam and Christianity are equal, close quotes. Yet, Pope John Paul II and all throughout history, they said, not all religions are equal. Many former popes, this is heresy to declare Islam equal to Christianity. Here's the Pope blessing and praying in front of pagan idols, which were also in the Basilica of St. Peter's. Here is in the garden outside the Vatican, inside the Vatican area. Now, God's first commandment in Exodus 20-3 is, you shall not have other gods before me. Here's the political Pope Francis. He greets his future Cardinal Gregory of Washington, D.C. False Catholic Biden supports abortions, plus Speaker Pelosi and the head of the Department of Health and Human Services, Exera. Also, the recent bishops' gathering voted against priests giving the body and blood of Christ to false public abortionists, such as Biden and Speaker Pelosi, among others. It's a sacrilege to do that, not only for Biden, but it's a sacrilege for the priest or the bishop who gives him the holy body and blood of Christ. Here's Pope Francis honoring the former excommunicated Luther. So Francis says, quote, the church's greatest reformers are the saints, men and women who follow the word of the Lord and practice it. This is the path we need to take. This is what reforms the church. And they are great reformers. He forgot that more than 500 years ago, he was considered a heretic by many popes and excommunicated. Finally, this is an image taken from Michelangelo's painting in the Sistine Chapel of God touching the hand of Adam, the first man. But this God and this Adam has surgical gloves on for this conference. Isn't that kind of silly? Ridiculous? So Archbishop Vigano, who was the nuncio for 5 years in the U.S., who studied this stuff, said the Global Health Conference at the Vatican, which is, by the way, in early May, which includes guests such as Dr. Fauci, Mr. Deepak, he's a New Age movement expert, Chelsea Clinton, Bill Gates, who supports with his billions of dollars abortionists around the world. He said, this is a scandalous confirmation of the Pope leading the church astray. The former nuncio to the U.S. blasted the Pope and his allies for betraying the faithful by cozying up to big tech, abortionists, and globalists known to the public. The Holy See has deliberately renounced the supernatural mission of the church, making itself a servant of the New World Order and Masonic globalism in an antichrist counter-magisterium. The submission to the interests of the Masonic elite is manifesting itself in the deafening silence of the sacred pastors and bewilderment of the people of God who have been abandoned to themselves. It's disgraceful. Now, how do we know God? We know him by the beauty and wonder of his creations. So natives living on an island who never read the Bible, never knew God directly, never knew Christ, they know him by his creation. By his revealed word, most of us know him. By Holy Scripture, by fulfilled prophecies, 99% have been fulfilled. By his witnesses, apostles, martyrs of the church, and saints. Martyrs of the church would never agree to this stuff. By reason and faith. When I say faith, I mean trust, not blind faith. But hate is never an invitation to dialogue. All dialogue with other faiths must be based on love. Now we have God's laws, natural laws, and secular civil laws. Today, throughout Western society, sex is the key issue. It affects equality, gender, racism, abortion, marriage, divorce, and of course, our faith. Here are some words from St. John Paul II. First he said, quote, "I'm yours, Blessed Mother of Fatima," close quotes. John Paul II believed in the Blessed Mother of Christ at Fatima. About 70,000 people witnessed this miracle October 13th in 1917. It's officially accepted by the Catholic Church. She asked for the consecration of Russia to the Blessed Mother. After that, after he acknowledged her, the Cuban nuke threat by Russia in 1962 ended. Now, the third secret was not revealed until much later. It's about the church corruption, which is happening at this very moment. Church leadership obviously didn't want that revealed. By the way, that was also predicted by Nostradamus. So again, John Paul II said, freedom consists in not doing what we like, but having the right to do what we ought to do. Science can purify religion. Religion can purify science. Social justice cannot be attained by violence. Violence kills what it intends to obtain. We all see that happening today. Let me give you some conclusions. These are not based on opinions or conspiracy theories. The facts I gathered are from credible sources, such as the world over, EWTN, many good bishops, LifeSite News, a book called Infiltration by Marshall, traditional good leaders like Cardinal Ratzinger, Sarah, Burke, Vigano, Tyler, and Schneider, and many other good bishops and archbishops and cardinals. The clear and convincing evidence is compelling. There is clear pattern with Pope Francis since his election, and some corrupt cardinals. One may debate the accuracy of some reports. However, this is clear and convincing evidence. One can see a pattern with Pope Francis since his election in 2013. In summary, the evidence shows our Pope is misleading Christians. He is misguiding the sheep. However, we must not judge the Pope. We must leave that judgment to Jesus Christ. Christ suffered and died on the cross to offer redeeming grace for all sinners who freely choose to accept or not accept his mercy and love. That's a powerful offer. Can you imagine? He created everybody, and then he lets them make their own decision. They're not robots. You get to make that decision. And we cannot save our children or anybody else if they don't want to be saved. It's like throwing somebody a life preserver. If they don't want to grab onto it, they sink. All we can do is teach and pray, basically. We must pray for Pope Francis and all the bishops. Again, I say we must pray for Pope Francis and all the bishops. Many people today are lost spiritually. They actually need meaning and purpose in their lives. This is my final slide. It's a symbolic image of Eve feeding fruit to the people. So we must choose between the fruit of death given by Eve on the right side, or the bread of life from the tree of Jesus Christ on the left side. That's the Virgin Mary, Blessed Mother of Christ, giving the Holy Eucharist, the body and blood of Christ, to people. What a contrast.